What's up, everybody? This is Jared here with Heat Press Nation, and this is Customizing Culture. This is the HPN podcast where we dive deeper into the t-shirt and customization industry. Today, I have a very, very special guest. He is your favorite influencer, you guys. I'm here with none other than Jon Phenom. Jon, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Stoked to be on the podcast.
Dude, it's so exciting to have you here. I feel like whoever the Beatles were listening to, that's where you're at right now. It's like,
wow.
I feel like I'm like talking to like my hero's hero.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's really, really cool. It's an honor. I couldn't believe you were local, by the way.
Yeah.
So not too much of a drive for you, right?
Yeah, I'm right here, really close to this area, but I would call it just outside of LA. So
yeah, nice.
when you have the conversations of people like, oh, we're in LA, it's debatable. They're like,
there's
that's
so
not
many
LA.
little towns.
Yeah.
I tell people I live on the edge of LA because
Right.
I live in Pomona. So
Right.
it's literally the last city in LA County.
Uh-huh.
So like I think even on my Twitter it's like edge of LA, edge of Los Angeles. I'm literally on the edge of LA County. But yeah.
I'm
very cool.
I like the suburbs. The first property I ever bought was like in Torrance.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice,
And then some people that probably grew up in Torrance were like, why did you live in Torrance? And I was like, dude, I like Torrance.
Yeah,
It's a great
yeah.
neighborhood. So I'm in a suburb now, but I'm in LA. It's funny because I grew up in San Diego, and still people will be like, are you still in San Diego? And I'm like, bruh, I've been in LA for like over 5 years.
Jeez. Yeah, I love San Diego, by the way. My wife is from San Diego.
Yeah.
She's from the border. She's
Okay.
from San Ysidro.
San Ysidro.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're out there at least once a month. And
Yeah.
dude, I love LA Mexican food.
Yeah.
But you can't beat San Diego Mexican food.
It's really good. It definitely rivals a lot of the border city food. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
people migrate from it, but I grew up there, so I got a ton of love for San Diego. I mean, I'll probably
Nice.
I can't live there because I grew up there, but if it's a beautiful city, yeah,
I love to visit.
yeah.
Every time. So I'm already going off on a tangent. You
Yeah,
see
the
why
leash-
I have
the
my
leash.
you see why I have my leash off camera though,
Yeah.
or if you guys are on listening on like Spotify or wherever, off camera I have some notes. And before we started, I said this is my leash. This is how I avoid running into conversational traffic and getting hit by cars. So, keeps me back on track. So I gotta ask, tell the people a little bit more about you. Those who don't know your
Sure.
background or what you've done.
Right. So, clothing brand mentor, as it were, Jon Phenom. I've been in the apparel development space for well over like 23 years.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was like, when I was 18, when I left high school, I was really looking for a career, like what I wanted to do. I was really ambitious. Like in high school, I did a lot of things. Like I was a hardcore wrestler. I was like a varsity wrestler.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, and then I did theater, and then I was like president of the art club. Like all these.
That's
like,
a pretty big spectrum.
It's a big spectrum,
Usually
yeah.
the theater kids aren't messing with the wrestling kids.
Right. I mean, it's almost a dichotomy between the two. Like they're almost separate ends of the spectrum. And
Yeah.
so we did a lot of things. I had like a dance crew back in middle school. So anyways, I knew I wanted something multifaceted, but I was really hungry to kind of figure out what my career was. And I met this guy that summer when I was 18, and his name is Ali Asha Owerkamor. And Ali had moved to California from New York, and he was one of I would say is like one of the founding veteran designers of streetwear movement in New York.
Okay.
Worked with a
Nice.
lot of big, I mean, there weren't many, but there were big labels at the time because it was like a new movement.
Yeah, that must have been really fresh on the scene.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like the whole conversation of like, kids in the ghetto wanting to wear like Polo or Ralph Lauren. And so, more urban type kids were like, well, let's just make our own kind of apparel.
Yeah.
He had moved here. A friend of a friend was like, you got to meet this guy, Ali. And I was like, what does he do? Like, he designs clothing. And I was like, what do you mean, like runway stuff? I had no concept.
Yeah, because this is like now you say streetwear and everybody can tell you, oh, like Supreme,
Like this brand, that brand, yeah.
Exactly. Everybody says, oh, like this, but back then you go back 20 years even in streetwear. What is streetwear? You mean
Right.
like there's no answer for that.
Yeah. So, and then skate goes, I mean, people can argue, but it went through in and out phases of how big it was, and then like very much touching pop culture, and then it's almost like rock and roll, so that like the core heads don't like it or whatever.
Yeah.
But this was the burgeoning beginning of that phase. So it was like kind of an explosion with hip hop, skate and surf, and all of that. So the industry was was forming. And so anyways, I met him and I was like, I don't know how to do that, but I can do that. Like I was like, this is the best job ever. I was like, I do not have to grow up.
Something just clicked with you.
Well, I went into an office, so it was like an office like this, and then I walked in, and in the art department there was like 3 dudes. Actually, all 3 of them were from the East Coast. Like Ali he had brought on his A team of people, and those guys are all kind of legendary and doing other things in streetwear. One of the guys sung, ended up becoming the head footwear designer, and did a lot of the best-selling shoes at DC Shoes. So this was at
huge,
DC Dub and Drawers back in the days. So people forget that DC had a clothing brand component and then a snowboard company called Dub. So anyways, I rolled in and he showed me, designing on the computer, and they had a sample making room and the warehouse, and I was just like, this is it. I don't know how to do this, but I can do that well. Yeah. Yeah. So that happened. This was in the late 90s, so I couldn't afford a computer. Like to me, being like starting out college, that was like buying like a low priced used car. Because it was not like I tell people this and they can't even relate. They still used to use the term computer nerd back then. Yeah. Which is crazy because our phones are computers, right? Yeah. And so I literally took classes at the community college so I could have access to their Macintoshes. Yeah. And and I started a little t-shirt line, and I was slanging that t-shirt line, and for two reasons. Like kind of a part-time job, but I needed to learn Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. And so I did that, and that became a reference portfolio piece that got me my first job in 2000 as an apparel designer at a small skate company in San Diego.
Can you share the name of that skate company?
It's Osiris Skate Shoes. Big shout out Brian Reed.
I asked him that because you say small skate company, and maybe they were small when you joined on. Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure Osiris is so much bigger than one shoe.
They did millions. So when I say, I guess I think about the crew that I was with. Big shout out to Brian Reed. Big shout out to Persway, and the whole crew there. But they did million. I mean, like they were doing custom shoes. Wow, we're going way back. They did custom shoes for Fred Durst, who was massive at the time, and like anyone who was touring big. I mean, we were reaching out and saying, hey, do you want custom shoes? I mean, it's come back in iterations, but people look at the shoe now and it's like a pillow. It's like a massive shoe.
The Osiris, by the way, we're talking about the Osiris D3.
The D3.
The D3, which, so me, born and raised here in Southern California, I never had the D3 because they were, I'm guessing they were like 109 or 99 or somewhere in that range. They weren't cheap. And me, growing up kind of like lower middle class, one of 5 kids, like there's no way I was going to get the D3. Yeah. But did I see that darn shoe every last place that I went? Right. It's just, so to me, like when I found out that you worked at Osiris, I was like, this guy's working at probably one of the most iconic brands of me growing up. And it's funny because at the time you're probably only like a couple years older than me. Yeah. But it's just enough to where you were working there and I was just kind of just like in high school. Yeah. At the time, seeing the fruits of the Osiris labor there.
Yeah. I mean, and this might be like, because I never really take apart the story. Depends on where I'm getting interviewed. But there's so many like hustling lessons there. But like, for example, that interview, it just so Persway was he's a well-known graffiti artist, and then people don't know before that, like I mean he's a veteran of design in the industry, so he's designed graphics and like actual footwear design. But he had called me and is like, hey, everyone knew that I was looking for a job in the industry. It's the only thing I wanted. And he was like, hey, let's do lunch. And then I came in for lunch, and then Brian Reed, the vice president, he came in. I didn't know who he was. He started asking me questions. It was a job interview, and I didn't know it was a job interview. This is wild.
They sniped you.
Once I realized, I was like, oh, like what do you do in the company? Because he was like 26 or 27 at the time. Jeez, and so I'm thinking it's this dude, you know what I mean? And he was just like, oh, I'm the vice president, and I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know if he was a pro skater or what, and then I was kind of like, is this a job interview? And then Persway goes, hey, do you have some of your stuff? And this is the hustle moment I'm talking about, though. My portfolio was always in the trunk of my car.
smart.
That's correct. I
Yeah.
think that's a little crazy, but for that one moment, I was like, yes, I have it in a car. I'll be back here in 2 minutes.
Yeah, which is funny because this is pre-smartphone era, so you can't exactly just open up a little folder and swipe some, airdrop them your nothing.
Yeah,
so
I
you
still
you
have
had
it.
like zipped up in like a little.
Yeah. I mean, I still have. I mean, it's funny because I don't think I'll ever work in house for a company again, but I still have my portfolio that's on matted boards and like a metal portfolio case.
Nice.
Yeah, kids don't even know what that is anymore.
Yeah.
They're like, what is that?
Like the art students know what that is. Everybody else is like, oh, it sounds great, Grandpa.
Yeah. So from there though, just to kind of cap it, that was the beginning of my journey in like 2000, and then I ended up moving to LA, which I knew would happen. All of the fashion brands are out here.
Yeah.
Made my way up to senior men's designer, and then eventually creative director. And then the last company I was with in-house, I was basically the president. I was like the brand director. And so every aspect of the company, I mean, like as a creative director, it's everything from like trending, calendar, managing the calendar, design, all of that stuff, all the way through to production.
So much more than just a cool T-shirt graphic.
Oh.
It's just like, it's insane the amount of work that goes into something that you buy in a retail store.
Oh, absolutely. They're like taking apart the sausage. I mean, that's pretty massive YouTube video or podcast.
You probably can't even fit it into a single podcast.
Yeah, no, there's a
Yeah.
lot. So like being from I mean, it was crazy when they're pitching me like, hey, we want you to run the whole company. I was like, oh wow. Yeah.
How heavy was that?
It was heavy lifting. Like I
Yeah.
definitely say that. Like it was heavy lifting. It was a good experience. And then, starting out, like I'm pretty competitive with myself, and I was just like, I would set up rules. Like I just want to be one of the best designers in the space. And I think I'm good. There's a lot of people aesthetically that I think have a lot better takes than me when you're looking at different brand work of people that like kind of art direct. But like I shifted a lot into wanting to understand the logistics of how a company works. And so like, I kind of dumb it down for the internet. I'm like, oh, I'm a designer, but really sometimes I feel like a businessman disguised as a designer. Like
That's such a great way to put it.
yeah. I mean, I could design a killer spring line, but especially now, in my older age, I'm just kind of like, I'm really interested in making a company work and how it works. But it was a jump, but even my first jobs as a designer, sometimes I would have other coworkers say, man, you ask too many questions, but I would want to know, like, how does our part work with the bigger company in the engine, and how does the engine work? And where are we headed? Like, yeah. So it would make me answer other questions like, how can we do this quicker, faster with less effort? Yeah.
Yeah. Which are all amazing questions to be asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, I have a question. Like there's a huge difference, and I feel like you're probably one of the best people to ask this question to, because you've done all sides. I feel like all sides of a T-shirt. If anyone just picked up a T-shirt at a store, you have been on every last possible angle of that, except for maybe what? No. I take that back. I was about to say except for sewing the darn thing, but you had your own custom denim line for a little bit.
Yeah.
So you've literally done every last possible aspect of producing a piece of clothing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Without being too humble, come on.
Yeah.
You could tell the people.
Well, it's funny because this whole part gets skipped, and then when people find out, they're just like, "Wait, what?" So prior to the internet, I was known as Jon Phenom, the denim guy, the handmade denim guy, and so this was also in the early 2000s when I had moved to LA. My best friend at the time was I just wanted to be a designer, and he just wanted to be a marketing PR guy. And so he's like, I'm gonna use you as my muse. Like, let's do an art show and let's do something. And I had just randomly, my mom had this sewing machine and it was broken. And so I was like, dude, I want to work with fabrics more, because I was only working on the computer screen, and I felt my knowledge in fabrication sucked at the time, which it did. And so I was like, I'm just going to make stuff. So I found the sewing machine, I took a look at the motor, and I fixed it. And I just started making random things. And then I was like, what's the craziest thing I can make with a sewing machine? And I was like, that'd be nuts if I made a pair of jeans.
Yeah.
And so I went and got a pattern. It was like...
It's so funny that you didn't start with like, what's the easiest thing I could make? No, you went straight for what's the hardest thing
I had made a couple things, and this is hilarious. I mean, because I didn't go to school for this. I've actually been a judge and a guest lecturer at like fashion schools, but I never went to school for it. So
that's crazy.
I didn't know what pattern paper was. I didn't even know what a dart was. I didn't know what none of that was. Like any of the traditional terms that you use for fashion and tailorship. And so when I was making it, we still had paper bags. And so I was like, I made this pattern that was like really old school. So when I made my first jean, it was like from the 60s or something. Like the waist was horrible. And I was like, oh, I guess people just make changes to it. So I laid out a bunch of paper bags. I taped them together. And then I made my own pattern. And the second one I started wearing. And it just went crazy. Like I didn't know that denim was a thing, like its own category. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, because I was young and I was still learning fashion, but people stopped me everywhere. So from there, I did an art show in LA called Outfit. And I had guests from all around the world, like Tokyo, New York, LA for sure. And like all these people who collabed with me who otherwise wouldn't have collabed with me. And I just sent them like these handmade pair of denim jacket or jeans. And I was like, hey, do whatever you want to this. I'll pay for shipping, because artists are like not lazy, but sometimes they have no time frame of getting things back to you. And so that whole era was me, hand making jeans as Jon the handmade denim guy.
Yeah. That's incredible. I feel like that's why, it's one of the reasons why your channel is so successful. One of the reasons why I feel like so many people refer to you and your inspiration and your knowledge that you share is because you truly have a very unique perspective in this industry of you've done it all. You've done it all well. And I think that's pretty rare. What would you say is the biggest difference? Because here at Heat Press Nation, a lot of our customers, they're just starting out with either their clothing line or their print shop. What would you say is the difference between starting a t-shirt shop and a t-shirt brand or line? What's like the biggest, what would you say has the bigger struggle?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. And for those of you who don't know, I owned my own high volume shop for like 3 years.
Jeez.
So like, so
you've truly done it all.
Oh yeah, we printed for Blizzard, was one of our biggest clients.
Blizzard the
entertainment here in Irvine.
Jeez, yeah.
But I don't know if they're bought out by now or there's that whole deal. But they're one of our big clients. Like our productivity was good. We were able to do like thousands of units.
You're doing like the full auto screen presses.
Yeah, we had 2 autos. We had two dryer chambers, and then like managing like 20 employees, like accordion. So like that's on and off. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
That's a huge shop.
Yeah. So just want to qualify for people like, who's this guy talking about starting a shop? So when it comes to starting a shop, oh gosh, the funny thing is that I answered this in my YouTube channel, but the answers changed over time because there's so many crafters in the space and there's such a big category now. But they're both difficult. I think the trap with starting your own shop for production. Now, I would say the biggest thing is for anything before I answer this is be clear on your goal. So
that's good.
If people are going, I'm gonna do a clothing company and start with t-shirts, and if I buy the equipment, I might as well also take on some clients. It can very easily go into client work mode, and then you will not have enough energy at the end of the day to say, oh, well, what new looks do I want to put together for my brand? Yeah. So that's the biggest thing that I say. Both of them are difficult. But again, I just think like because if your goal is like, I kind of want to do something, but it'd be cool if starting a shop was like my main gig, then at least you're clear on your goal. Okay. Yeah, and you can approach it. Yeah.
That's a trip. So they both come with their own challenges. If you had to pick one of the, well, I feel like you have actually, because you have your own brands and lines and you don't have the shop anymore.
No, I don't. I just feel like, I feel like this is for everyone, but every moment is like, what's the best and highest use of all of these skills that I've acquired? And then, I'm still really tight with my business partner. He's still running that business.
The print shop?
The print shop.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
He's still going. And, but I felt, it was right around the time where I was like, what am I going to do with this YouTube thing? Like this. So just for backstory. Yeah. I've had my channel for a long time, and I tell people it was like a Dropbox for me, because This is well over like 10 years ago, but YouTube wasn't anything close to what it was now.
Yes, 100%.
So I'm the guy that people would ask advice, like, oh, I'm Jared's friend. He said you work in clothing and you'd be a good guy to ask. And I'd be like, yeah. And yeah, if Jared's friend, yeah, I'm cool. Like, what do you want to ask? Because a lot of people were gatekeepers, kind of. Like, you couldn't get someone to tell you who any of their producers were or anything like that.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah. Oh, and now there's whole, like TikTok channels that's like, this is where Adidas makes this jumpsuit.
I just saw that. You reposted that one, right?
Yeah.
That blew my mind, by the way. I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's actually, because my feed aggregates it. There's like another channel like that, and that dude is from China. So very interesting. I'm trying to get a hold of both to like just do a video or talk about it.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it was elusive, is what I'm saying. And so people would ask me. And so when I first started YouTube, it was just like, let me put like 10 most asked questions on this YouTube thing. And so when it grew out, I forgot my password at one point, and it kept growing. And so I was in a break. Like, I was working for a company, and then the parent company bankrupted. And so our company was doing well, and out of nowhere, the plug got pulled, and I got a severance package. I was very grateful for that, but I was like, what am I gonna do? And I was like, oh, I should check out that YouTube channel, and it had like thousands of subscribers.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I think people really try to do that. So it was like while I was working and everything I'm telling you in my resume, I was like, what do I do with this YouTube thing? So I just kind of kept it going, and then
that's even before YouTube at the time was not viable as a source of income.
Yeah.
Like nobody was making money on YouTube back then.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even, I mean, I tell people at different points, like even when I had like, let's just say like 7,000 subscribers, but I'm working full-time salary is like my dream job, like designing clothing. Yeah. But I was like, well, what do you do with this? Like, it's not a big enough check for like anything crazy, but it's 7,000 people that are listening to you. I didn't. So a big event that happened was 2017 was a big kind of milestone. So Google asked me to speak at an event.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was an influencer panel. Like the email was like, hello, like influencer. And I was like, is this a joke?
That's funny. And influencer was probably such a new term at that time.
Oh yeah, 2017. Yeah. And I was like, is there a hidden camera? Is this a joke? And so the person called me. I was like, are you a real person? Yeah. And she was like, yes, absolutely. Like, I work for Google. And I was like, this is crazy. I was like, how did you find me? And she goes, I Googled you or I YouTubed you or whatever. I was like, okay, set myself up for that. And so anyways, and this event, it was a live event, and then it was a panel of influencers. Everyone on that panel, to some degree, was starting to make it with social media. Most of them had a YouTube channel. There's like a model on there. Chloe Couture was on there, and she had like 4 million subscribers at the time. So she had an entire press team with her. And I was like, oh, I should maybe take this really seriously. Yeah. Yeah. So it was a big moment where I was just like, oh my gosh, like these people are. She was making a living doing it. Obviously, like she had a whole press team. It was insane. And so I was just like, wow, I should really maybe double down or triple down on this.
Yeah, that's amazing. So now, I feel like a lot of your passions kind of converge on your YouTube channel because you have your passion, without trying to rhyme, you have your passion for fashion. Yeah, but you see, it seems like you have a passion to just share knowledge because you're saying that like people were hitting you up for info and you're just like freely dealing it. You know, and I love what you said about not like being a gatekeeper and stuff like that. Like, like where does that come for you? Because not everybody's built that way.
And I'll tell you this early on too. I feel like I got a little bit of heat from it. I remember I was like at a trade show, and this dude was like, "Yo, why you be doing that? Why you letting out all these secrets?" And I'm like, who cares? Like, you know, because the temperature of things now is like the person who kind of gives the most value is gonna win. Yeah. Right? It's pretty classic Gary Vee. Yeah. And so, but that wasn't the mentality back then. But while I have a huge love for fashion, I'm also kind of like a normal dude. Yeah. Like I'm a big MMA fan. You know, I like to work out. Like there's a lot of things I would rather skip over just like watching my nephew play soccer.
Yeah.
So, like I'm gonna be dead one day. So I'm just like, not to be morbid.
Such a real way to put it. That it's true. We all
If I
be.
could help someone on their journey. I mean, there's a couple things like so. Maybe on a competitive side, I could see where people are like, don't give up any secrets. But I'm also kind of like competitive also where I'm like, if you give most people the information, there's many cases where they won't even use it, or they won't use it to its full potential. And if everyone antes up, I feel like it's good because then I'm just going to bring my game to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then that kind of, I guess, can you talk about your journey? How did that eventually, the YouTube, the everything, the information, how did that get kind of funneled into Clothing Brand Academy? And for those who don't know, can you tell us what Clothing Brand Academy is?
Sure. So Clothing Brand Academy is basically, it's the wheelhouse for all my solutions. So courses, I feel like most of them are pretty like short form courses because, like I'll expand where I need to, but people usually want education quickly. But actually the most popular things as we're recording this, the most important things that are on the site that move a lot are the documents. So like, a lot of people could talk about design. There's a lot of designers out there, but I guess on the part where I've run multi-million-dollar like clothing businesses is like, well, what's the process of workflow inside of the office? Like, what does everyone else do? What does the production manager do? Yeah. So I have like real documents basically that are that I would use on a day-to-day.
From a professional $1 million company, people can incorporate that into their small startup.
Yeah, like my budget sells like crazy. I have a master budget, but in there is I don't want to say a real budget from a company I worked at, but it's like it's very close.
Right.
It's very close to it, and all the names are changed. But you can get a snapshot of a company that's doing like $6 million, and everything. I think I left out the salaries, but and then that's accompanied with a blank document or like my tech packs. I have my tech packs in Adobe Illustrator and EPS, like you would normally, but I also include like a Canva version that's free. Yeah.
That's incredible. It's funny because one thing that I learned because obviously like trying to be a good podcaster, doing my research, and then deeper than the YouTube, because I already knew you from YouTube.
Yeah.
But then going into like Clothing Brand Academy, it's like, wait, so you mean there's more to a t-shirt line than a good design? And it blows my mind as you're telling me like, oh yeah, the big sellers is the documents. It's the business side, because I feel like if you're a good designer, you're probably not struggling that hard to make a good design. Your t-shirt business is probably struggling for like a ton of other reasons.
Right.
What do you think are some of the big hangups outside of design that t-shirt companies have?
Great question. So I love this. So all of that part is like very popular, right? It's like look at how I designed this, or a lot of other dudes that will send you like kind of like guru courses. Yeah. It's very much like they're just going to show you like, I sold like 50 million of this. Yeah. And so more or less when I look into what the makeup of a lot of those courses, it's like how you made the sale quickly. It could be education with like Shopify, or maybe like digital marketing or SEO marketing with all of that. But the thing that I want to answer for you for the question is, okay, so how do we maintain that? Or what does it look like as like not a design person, maybe just an entrepreneur or an operator, and say, what does our productive workflow look like? Yeah. And how do we make it efficient? So that's the answer to me. It's like, it seems like there's a lot of people who could get over and make a really good amount of money, whatever that number is. Like if you just want to quit your job or make a good part-time amount, people could get to that. But if you want to pay a mortgage with it, like how do you get to like Gymshark level, or or enter any brand that you think is popular? So getting to like, I would say anywhere to the like in and around the $10 million mark is like from 5 million to 10 million is where I'm comfortable, where I have been comfortable as a director. But trying to give people an idea of what that looks like in a more longer term, or like just like a logistical professional take on
Right.
what the office looks like.
So treating your business more as like, hey, this is something that wants to grow, that wants to expand, that wants to scale up.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, it's my bedroom shop and it's always going to be my bedroom shop, and I
Yeah.
only ever want it to be my bedroom shop.
Yeah, yeah, and along with that too, like anything that kind of looks sexy on YouTube or on the internet or on TikTok, and like there's a lot of that, and it's like so a lot of the solutions I have are not very popular in terms. It sounds very boring, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I could bring it down to like I'm very nitpicky about like style numbers.
Yeah.
Because if you're like more like a nerdy production person, like a style number can be the makeup of it could tell you a lot about a garment and where it's supposed to be or what seasons it's from and things like that. But like when you get into organizing a company, that's something like I nitpick on, where it's like, oh, it needs to be like this. Because now this style, like style number 4 that you do, I'll know where it came from or where it's supposed to be or where it is in the warehouse.
Nice. Yeah. So definitely like the tools are that you have at Clothing Brand Academy are for scaling up.
It's for scaling up, and it's just like, no one sells like office documents. They're basically office documents.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing because it's true. Nobody sells that. So when somebody who is scaling up their brand is successful, if they're going out of they went from their room to their garage to their rented warehouse space, and they're like, hey, and they're kind of like treading water because, there's nowhere for them to grab onto. There is no blueprint for that,
right.
And so I feel like you being able to kind of answer the call to those small business owners, I'm sure that's why they love you. Like,
yeah. So it's an unexpected labor of love. My definite goal with it is trying to be the best I can be, like giving people information that can level them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and not only business, you also talk a lot about branding and design and just making things like look good.
Yeah.
Which I think is huge. Like, how important would you say branding is to not just putting your logo on a t-shirt, but like how important is branding to the overall company? Like, let's say for everybody who's watching or listening who they are starting their t-shirt line,
right.
like how important is branding to them overall?
It's the game. It's the entire game. So earlier you're asking, like, starting a shop, is it more challenging than a brand? If you boil down the making a successful brand, which I'm sure it would not be debatable to say it makes X amount, right?
Yeah, right.
Whether you want it to be a part-time job or pay your mortgage, it's how big you get it. So if we kind of strip that down, it's like, what's the difference from a plain white T-shirt and if we just screen print Nike on it, Now that shirt, which at cost, let's just say, I'll just throw it in. Let's say $7. Let's just say you have like a printed neck tag or whatever. But now we can sell that for $80, or like, let's do Supreme, right?
Oh, geez, yeah.
Supreme's crazy. They've sold bricks.
Yeah.
They've literally sold bricks. Like it's to the point where it's comical. Like even me laughing right now, it's like low key. If someone was like, "Yo, bro, I could get you a Supreme brick," I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool. But I'm like, the practical side of me is like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But do you see, even to have that conversation is the power of branding.
Yeah, even if we were joking about it, we still understand the value of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know, like, so I have the brand I just launched, right? If I grab a rock outside and I put if I screen print non-bait on it, like, can I sell that rock for something? It's an interesting idea. And so at the core of this conversation, I do think like creating a brand is one of the most difficult things that you can do, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot of competition, but just because it depends where you draw the line. Like if you and I come up with a name right now and then we start an Instagram, is that like a brand? And then we choose the handle on it that says it's a clothing brand. Yeah. Depending, maybe those people, maybe you count them as competing, yes or no. But to make it a viable product where there is a demand and there's a customer base that's like, we can't wait to see more, and they talk with purchasing, is one of the most difficult things ever. So yeah, branding is the whole game. It's not order black T-shirts and maroon T-shirts and hoodies and then what do we screen print on it, we do transfer on it. Like it's creating an entity from scratch that not only do people know of, like you create awareness, if you could get like 100 people to love it, that's a pretty huge accomplishment.
Yeah. I've in my time here at Heat Press Nation, I didn't know anything about the t-shirt industry, by the way, before I started here about 7 years ago now. It'll be 7 years next month. I knew nothing. Like 2 months after I started here, I was hooked. I bought my first heat press. I bought my vinyl cutter. I was in.
Nice.
And so in that time, I've tried a few different things. I've had my own like custom shop where I would do like low quantity orders. Cause it's all whatever extra space I had at home, extra bedroom, corner of the garage, etc. So, so I would do like custom, like low quantities for others. And then I've tried it about 2 or 3 times now, where I've tried launching my own brand.
Yeah.
And to me, the satisfaction, and I was talking with Brando a little bit about this, but the satisfaction of somebody not only buying a t-shirt, but asking me when the next drop is coming, that's a high that's very hard to beat. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. And then to have that person be someone else besides my mom is even better. So, it's really cool. And so I just totally agree with what you're saying about like building a brand that has demand. Like it's a challenge, yes, but it's a very rewarding endeavor. And you would know more than pretty much anybody.
Yeah, I mean, while you're talking, it reminds me, back in 2000, the first cut and sew item that I did that was probably relatively successful was just like a windbreaker jacket. And I remember we were at some sort of festival, some sort of Coachella type thing, and this kid was wearing a jacket I designed, one of those Cyrus jackets. Nice. And like, oh my God, I was just like, I was geeked out. I went up to him, I was like, hey bro, that's a cool jacket. And he's looking at me like some stranger, like this kid. I was like, where'd you buy that? He's like, I don't know, like a skate shop. And I was like, that's a cool jacket, bro. And I was just like telling my friends, like, I designed that. Like he's wearing something I designed. That's a trip. Yeah, I mean, after a while now, like, if I had seen apparel from any of the brands I worked at, I was pretty, I'm like, okay, cool. Like selling millions of dollars of product is going somewhere. Or a lot of people remember Orisu, one of the brands where I was a creative director, and our knits program was really popular. We did really good knits, and like, I still have people to this day that are like, I used to buy like everything from them, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Tight. Yeah.
So you mentioned your new brand, non-beta.
Yeah.
And what I think is amazing about that is you kind of coinciding with the launch, you had a video showing some of the transfers that you're using. You're actually using Supercolor transfers for your new brand. Yeah. And I think this is, for me, it's particularly amazing because you have access. You could print from whatever shop you wanted. You could use any method. I'm sure you have I'm sure your list of contacts is like 100 miles long. Like, so you're not short of a print method, but the fact that you chose to use Supercolor, I think, says a lot about the quality of the product.
Right. Glad you got into this one. So, I have a huge love for Supercolor. Big shout out to Rum and the whole team, Hamish and everybody at Supercolor. And so I got introduced to the product 2 years ago. And coming from print, you remember this, so this conversation happens all the time. But everyone remembers what transfers were in the beginning.
Yes.
It was like garbage. It was like hot trash.
Yeah.
And when people were using it, it was pretty much looked down upon. And so I had come over to the older Supercolor location, and they did kind of a test print, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
This quality is out of control. And so, so obviously doing some work with them, it was actually a big prompt for me because this is a way a smaller like crafter can really get to the next level. I mean, I say this in my videos, but it's like having a screen printing shop on a piece of film.
Yes.
Yeah, especially with Supercolor via the vibrancy of the full color. I mean, that's like a 14 head press auto.
Dude, it's stuff that is pretty impossible with screen. Yeah. Like, because I've seen like the simulated process videos, and they're great, but you're still seeing like halftones, and you're still seeing like having to do a little bit of ink removal, let the color of the shirt kind of pop through.
Right.
They're doing all these different tricks to the process to, even though they're using screen ink, to get that look, to get that super or multiple colors, photo quality. Like, they're still having to do a lot of tricks,
right,
to kind of make it a viable product. And then to me, like, and then of course the cost goes through the roof if you're the one buying those prints.
Right.
And then you have Supercolor. It's like, oh yeah, bloop,
Yeah.
and you have your sheet. And it's like,
2 days.
What the heck?
Yeah.
It's just such a game changer.
It's a huge game changer. And so, kind of inspired by that, also working with Bella Canvas, both of those two companies together, even saying, hey, let's do something. And they didn't know about the conversation that I was having in my head, where so the concept for non-beta, I've had in a notebook for years, like way over 5 years. So I have this whole, I did a video on it in my channel, and I have like a course on it, kind of on Clothing Brand Academy, about finding your name. And so on that course, basically, spoiler alert, it's like start an Evernote where you keep name ideas for your brand. And I will always come back to it because there's some names, and I come back to it and it's atrocious. I'm like, well, I'm like, was I drunk? Like, I didn't, like, what was that name's horrible?
Oh man.
But if I come back to it and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. If I come back to it and I say, wow, I could shoot off like 10 different ideas of graphics or garments or themes or seasons on that. And so, non-beta I put together because the two words non and when things are in a beta test, like a program, it's like a test. It's like they're just testing it, right? Like ChatGPT is in beta, right?
Which is why it's weird.
Yeah. A whole nother podcast there. Dang.
Yeah.
Woo, hold on to your jobs, people.
Yes.
And so I went and asked maybe like 5 different like really close friends, hey, when I say this name non-beta, what does that make you think of? And like I got so many different responses, and like the word for me just sounded like vintage and new at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the meaning for me like is non-beta. This is not a test. So for me, it's a sentiment of trying to live every moment of your life.
I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the internal meaning for me. But like Supercolor didn't know I was going to do this. Bella Canvas didn't know I was going to do this. And so I was like, to kind of kick off working together, they didn't know that I was going to launch a brand. And for my channel, I've kind of thought although I kind of didn't want to do it, you know, I didn't want to have a brand of my own for a long time. And so I haven't for a long time. I was just focusing on the content. And then I said, I think the next level is showing people doing it from zero. So that's the whole concept. There's 2 concepts or driving, motivating factors. Showing people doing it with like Supercolor and like, hey, this is how I'm doing it with a one-man show kind of. And then eventually growing it. And the other thing is just using it as a vehicle to do collabs and merch with people.
Yeah. Dude, that's incredible. I obviously been to the non-beta site, Instagram. Like it looks amazing. Like I'm going through it. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. This guy, like yeah, these designs are dope. Like they're amazing. And now question: do you keep Supercolor in mind when you're designing? Like, because for me that's one thing. So my brand, it's called Tuesday's Best. It's a taco themed brand, right?
Yeah.
And so all my designs when I was first starting, I was like, I got to pull this off with vinyl, because like I was like, okay, I don't know how many people are gonna buy this. I don't know, like
for practical cost reasons.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So I was like, okay, like so it was my first set of shirts where it was like a tie-dye tee with like a pocket logo on it.
Okay.
And so I was like, dude, no one's gonna give a darn about vinyl on a small little corner right here. Like no one's gonna question it. Like it's there, right? And so that worked a little bit. And so then I found myself for all my new designs, I was like, okay, how can I make this work with vinyl? Because obviously I wasn't doing like a lot of business,
right?
But it was small enough, and it was consistent enough. So I was like, okay, I can keep this in house. So I'm designing with vinyl in mind, and then on the latest version before, and I've mentioned this in other part. I'm not gonna keep repeating myself on this podcast, but basically, like I had a kid, and I just like put a pause on all my business.
Sure, family first.
Yeah. And so, but then towards the end, I was like, oh, because Supercolor comes along, and I'm buying it and I'm testing it, and I've done a few shirts with Supercolor, and now I'm like, oh, dude. So now Supercolor, the medium, it influences my design now, because now I design with that in mind. Have you found that that's the case where you're like, oh, this would be great with Supercolor. This would be great with screen, or
2,000%.
Oh,
like 2,000%. So, yeah. It's funny because it's not what you think. Like the push for me to have a clothing line was my whole goal when I was like 20. But then
Yeah.
that time came and well, you know, the time came and passed sort of, and then I was like, dude, I could just live behind a laptop, be this guy online. But as you might know, like having a clothing company is the most opposite from that because we deal with physical product.
Yeah.
And so the big push for that was working with these companies and working with Supercolor, but the collabs are starting to get booked now. So the big
that's
push
cool.
was working with other people. So content creator, influencers, pro athletes. Like I have people that I'm like, dude, it would be crazy cool to do something with this person.
Yeah.
But there kind of wasn't a right space to do it. But now I'll give you an example. So we're in the midst of getting the final things done with like there's a rapper here in LA called Pretty Papes, and we're doing something with a song or a single that he's dropping.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool, dude.
So
that
him-
is really cool.
There's and these names are gonna be like all around the board. So a good friend of mine, Francis Kenneth, he's like a fashion blogger.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, he basically he's one of those guys. He's almost like a trend forecasting for I'm sure he's on someone's trend forecasting board, but
Yeah.
but luckily like he's a good friend of mine, and so he has a great followership. So I'm like, let's do something. We're starting to do something, and then in the YouTube world, I'm friends with Identical Reactions. So those are identical twins out in Texas, and they basically just do reactions. But like I've known them from San Diego, so
Okay.
like it's all across the board, like all these different people. Like at the end of this month, as we're shooting this, there's a dancer in Sacramento named Concept, right? And so all of these people are like,
Dude, that's incredible
Yeah.
to have a platform to be able to make so many connections.
Yeah.
Before we came on and started recording, I was telling you like I love this podcast because I get to make so many connections. And I feel like as you get older, you can't exactly just like call your buddies and be like, hey, let's go out tonight or whatever. It's like, but if you have something business related, if you have
yeah.
a collaboration opportunity, then it's like, I don't know, as adults, like
It's
it's
for
easier to
work?
kind of justify it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, babe, I'll be back a little bit later. It's for work.
yeah. I mean, so all my travel coincides with work, and I love to travel. And like just like you, like I'm super social. I mean, I love like hearing people's stories. Is just it makes me feel alive, and I love to hear people's stories and how they overcame things, or just when they're doing like really good work. Like so, all those collabs, like I'm super geeked out and excited to make the product for. In the summer, I'm going back out to the Philippines to see my
nice.
family there, and obviously, I mean, I have the second collab is not locked in yet, but there's a brand out there called Team Manila, and they're massive out there, and they have retail. And so Joey, the founder of that brand, I've known him. I hosted like a Filipino and Filipino American podcast way back during COVID, and so yeah, we've kept in contact. He has a big brand out there, but yeah, so with non-beta and also even using Supercolor, all of it is kind of a formula to work with all of these other brands and influencers and content creators.
I love it. That's super cool. I like to listen to a lot of different podcasts, and I was listening to one with, I want to say it was Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. And that's not an industry podcast. It's just like a general market podcast. And I forget who he was talking to. He's talking to some old actor, and basically what they were getting to is like, dude, at a certain point in their career, like, you just take movies because you want to hang out with people you like. Like, you know, because obviously it's fun making, and what they're saying it's fun making good movies, it's fun making good product, but, you know, at a certain point you just want to hang out and work with people you enjoy.
Yeah.
And I'm like I totally understand that. We were talking before we came on camera, you were asking us like how long we've been here. And it was funny because I hadn't really thought about it, but a lot of the people here at Heat Press Nation have been here for years.
Yes.
And that's super cool. And I was thinking, I was like, you know what? I genuinely like the people I work here.
Yeah.
I work with here. And like, and so let me ask you this, like, throughout your career, obviously, like, not every workplace is amazing. Not every workplace, a lot of them are good, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, was there a particular point where you looked around the room and you were like, oh, I could hang out with these people forever? Like, just like this is a good spot to be.
Yes, there's been way more instances where there's a ton of crazy people. I mean, streetwear and fashion.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like working in music, right? I mean, it's all the it's a
yeah.
bunch of the cool guys from high school, and it's like how much business is getting done. But yeah, or you know, like there's always like one or two like maniacs that ended up at a streetwear company. But to answer your question though, I'll never forget like. So this came from problem solving as a creative director when I was at a brand, that brand Arisu. The parent company had lost a ton of funding, so we had to cut a bunch of full-time employees.
Oh,
so we lost, I would say 1.5 designers. So we had one dedicated designer and then a designer we shared with like marketing. And so I had to problem solve. So I'm like, we're going to lose our shirts. And I was like, how do we continue? And it's not our fault, but we were meeting our marks for our money. But in any case, I was like, I know it came to me at like 2 a.m. So I show up the next day and I tell my art director, I was like, I know what we're going to do. I was like, don't worry, I know what we're going to do. So I started an internship program. And at that time, people were still bouncing back from the mortgage crunch. Right. So there's a lot of designers out of work. And so I was like, hey, we're looking for, we went on social media. I was like, hey, we're looking for interns. It's a real brand. We're doing millions. We're distributed from here to Russia, like all around the world. And so it ended up bringing together a team of like, I think 6 to 8 people. And so we even had a nickname for the whole art crew. It was like a Second Brigade. And like it was a makeup of different people, like freelancers to interns that just wanted to experience. And they took up the rest of that 1.5 and made it possible for us to accomplish the work very easily. But the camaraderie in that group was so strong. I mean, man. Nice. So as a creative director, like things that are, I would say, different than the typical creative director, because people expect a certain thing, and I'm way more logistical than the person who's theory based in terms of like I'm all about just the art. I'm actually more about data and the bottom line, which is weird for a creative director. But in terms of people and ambiance, I'm really concerned with the nature of the group. So I would rather I don't want the best designer or production manager. I want the best one that can play well with others. Like, like, because I'm like, look, guys, we're going to be here 8 to 10 hours a day, every day. So it's, it's called work for a reason. It's not called fun. But if we can have fun, like we can have fun. That's so let's try to have fun. So, oh gosh, I have so many stories, but just interviewing designers for that job, there's so many like their egos don't come in the room. And it's hilarious. And I'm like, bro, there's no way I'm going to hire this person. It's crazy. So I'm looking for, someone in the top 10, but if you're the 9th one, but the person just seems affable and able to continue fostering a good atmosphere is what I'm looking for,
Yeah. People first, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
That's how you get like, guys, I was asking how long people worked here. I got the number 7, like, right? I mean, if you do studies now, people aren't staying at companies over 2 years. It's like a year and a half.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So 7 years, there's people in this.
We got
it's a good company.
We actually have 2 10s right now. And I can't share the secrets, but basically something cool happens here when you make it your 10 years.
Right.
So I'm trying to stick around for that. I got 3 more.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so the reason I'll ask that. So that's me with like kind of the executive question, and has nothing to do with art or designing anything. It like I told you, it tells me a lot about the company very quickly. Yeah. So when I would go, there's certain questions I would ask when people wanted me to work at another brand. I was like, oh, it's just a question like, oh, how long has everyone been working here? But
is it scary when you hear, oh, I'm new, he's 1 year? Like, is that a red flag for you?
So, well, streetwear, and it doesn't exist the same way that it did, like, I would say, like, even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Like, it's very small now. But I expected it. Like, a lot of my first several months kind of getting into the helm of a new brand is cleanup. It's horribly organized, and just there is no best practice. Like, there's no standard. So I'll create a standard, I'll clean up, and then it's like, okay, how can we make more money and pump this up, basically.
Yeah. I love it. A lot of our customers here at Heat Press Nation, they're upstarts, brand new, They have an idea, they have a concept, they want to either proof of concept or just straight up take it to market, even in a small market, which is one thing I do love about the internet, is that now you can have a small market if you want to. But my question is, so Supreme's gigantic, Stussy, I never knew how to say that word. So you have established streetwear brands that have made it from streetwear. You have Crooks and Castles starting out, and then they go to Macy's, right? So you have all these like different streetwear brands that have gone mainstream. It seems like there's no shortage of streetwear brands these days. My question is, do you think it's still possible? Because you have all the experience, you're like my crystal ball into the future. Do you think it's still possible for small streetwear brands to break into the mainstream, or do you think it's too saturated at this point?
So that's a good question. I think so. I bring it back to this, right? Like what are your goals? So like one of the biggest products I sell actually is not, or it is on Clothing Brand Academy, but it's consulting. So I'll consult with brands all the time, and they come from all over the place and have different goals. So the first thing I'll say is, what's your goal? So if you're a brand that wants to get into Macy's or Nordstrom's or Tilly's or Active, right, which are big retailers here, that's a different goal. Okay. And because you can go direct to customer and do $1 million. You can do it. Yeah. And there's a million brands out there that I probably don't know that are doing $1 million. And so if you have a small group, like a small team, you can do very well with a group and never sell at one of the aforementioned retailers. So it depends on your goals. As an example, obviously I have a lot of friends that I can get meetings with some of the aforementioned retailers, and I think that's like season 2 of when I begin dropping all the content of me growing the brand in real time. But even now, like, I don't want that. Like, it's so much easier to just sell direct to customer. So I think one of my answers to your question is you don't need to break into mainstream and have everyone know it and be super successful.
Oh, that's so mind blowing. I feel like I still have the old mentality of, oh wow, but I have to be in a Macy's to be successful. Right. It's kind of like with music. So me and my brothers in a band, whatever. And I'm from the age where it's like, no, nobody wanted to be independent. Everybody was going for the record deal, as if that was the end game. Yep. Until about 10 years ago, 2013, we actually had meetings with a few big labels. Wow. And then we get the contracts in and we're like, oh, this is kind of weird. This isn't the magic carpet ride.
Oh, the contract was horrible, aka.
Well, even the good one, the better contracts that we were offered, we're looking at it and we're like, oh, wait a second, this is not. And then we're talking with other artists who had already been on those labels, and they're like, yeah, no, getting a record deal is not like winning the lottery. It's like going to college.
It's like the beginning.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the next level. It's so much work, and so I feel like with your answer right now, because me, I'm like, once my brand gets into Nordstrom, I'll have made it. Right. And from what you're saying, it's like, no, that's, first of all, you don't need that. But second of all, it's probably not even like the end all.
Right. So really quick to give some value on this, because I definitely will meet with brands and say, my whole goal is that, like, I want to be in Nordstrom's or whatever it is. Yeah. That whole game, which no influencer is going to really talk about, maybe me and Gary Asianet at T-Shirt Help Desk, but just because I know both of us have a background working in apparel. But yeah, there's definitely give and take with it. So a lot of those big retailers are going to need to tap into your warehouse and what you have for quantities. And so they're making big monster buys. So if you don't have that liquid money ready to create production, because they'll have terms. These big companies might have 60-day terms, maybe 90-day terms. It depends. And it depends on what their leverage is, right? And so while the buys will allow you to get really cheap minimums on your garments, and they will basically make a season for you, like you'll make money. Once that money comes in, you have to account for your accounting needs to be very, very on point, and it freezes you up to a certain degree. Also, you're holding your breath for a little bit, right? Until you really pad your bank account, your corporate bank account. And so there's give and takes to it. The sexiness of saying I'm in this shop is always going to be a thing. But that's why I say on the other side, if you go direct to customer, you could win. It's like it's winning like person by person. Yeah, or sale by sale.
Dude, such amazing insight. Like I feel like there's like for the people who are on this path, I feel like everybody here is just dripping in gold right now. Just like, yes, like give me more. So in your video, I believe that you released yesterday, one of your bits, not bits, but one of the segments was you're talking about organization. And which is funny because yesterday I was interviewing, and I don't know what order these podcasts are going to be released in. So I'm saying yesterday, this podcast may not come out for like another couple weeks, but I was interviewing Lee Stewart, who has a big screen print YouTube channel. And so he was saying that his cheat code that he just recently discovered has been his organization. Because I asked him, at the end, I'm like, dude, like what's your big secret? And he goes, dude, it's my Google Calendar. And so he was telling me how like organization was like his cheat code, and he was saying like, oh yeah, if I would have started, being this organized a couple of years back, I'd be so huge by now, just because that's what powers me. And so when you were talking about organization and how you use like Evernote and different things like that, it was really like, I'm gonna be honest, like in my heart, I was like getting cut a little bit. I was like, oh, because organization's where I suck, right? So having both of those, hearing that both yesterday, first of all, like really like convicted me to just be better at organization. Yeah. But can you expound on that a little bit? Like organization, is it? I feel like asking it, it's almost rhetorical to say, is it really that important? But I should say it like this: what is organization to you? How has it affected and influenced your success?
Ooh, okay. So there's two ways to answer this. So as Jon Phenom, there's a couple moving parts, right? There's Clothing Brand Academy. There's me as a content creator. Of course, I'm like throw non-beta in the mix. So being effective at all of those things to a certain degree is pretty essential. How I break down the moments that I want to happen in my life from now until when God calls it quits on me. I mean, like it's very important. So. I'm older and I want to make sure that all of those things are kind of fulfilling for me. Like I told you, my thought process behind non-beta, there's another version of me that never dropped the brand, and I'm just kind of the YouTube guy, and I think I'd have good content. But in the end, it's a good decision for me. Now, the second way to answer this is to give more value to people, is when you are kind of doing an operation or you're a crafter and you want to go to the next level, everything from understanding, like, I'm presupposing you can bust out some good designs, right? So let's start there.
That's a given. We'll start.
So if you can bat them out of the park, like you just drop designs, is like, dude, this just sold out. I gotta order more blanks, and that sort of thing is good. But moving past that and understand how you can hit bigger milestones, in terms of. For me, the creative part is how am I creative with this, the kind of capital that I have, utilizing blanks, utilizing looks, and then keeping everything in mind and juggling all of that, right? Like, let's say you order from Sanmar and they're always out of a black color of whatever your favorite style is. And so it's like, wow, it would be really great when they re-up if I have enough money to order a ton of those. So if I do my next 2 designs in that black color of that style number, I already have them in stock, right? Yeah. And again, that's the part that's not... It's not that fun to make YouTube videos about, but for me, if you can stay on top of those things organizationally, it's the difference of years and years of excelling, getting to $1 million way quicker.
Yeah. $1 million sounds nice to me right now.
Yeah.
I could use $1 million.
Yeah, shoot. You and me both.
All right, and this is the last question, and it's a question I like to close with because I feel like it's helpful to a lot of people.
Please.
If we had a little time machine, right, a little DeLorean parked out front.
Nice.
We can go back in time to, what was it, 99, when right before you started at Osiris.
Yeah.
If you could give young Jon Phenom some advice to help him through his journey, like what would you tell him? Like, what advice would you give your younger self?
All right. I mean, first of all, on probably like my lowest lows, I would probably like to tell the younger me don't have a panic attack.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna work out. So I would say that. Yeah. And then like everything else is advice I took for myself. Like I doubled down when I thought it was the right time to double down, which is what I would probably tell myself. I am not a patient person. I would probably try to tell myself to be patient, but probably even now I'm not as patient as I should be. Yeah. And, you know, I would never have to tell myself this because my dad drilled it into our heads. I mean, it's how we got here from the Philippines, but he was just like, you got to be the hardest worker in the room, and you don't need to tell anyone that you're doing it, because I have found the most confident people do not need to brag about themselves. Like other people will talk about you.
Yeah, the work speaks for itself.
Just work. Yeah.
I
just
love
get it. Yeah.
Dude, well, seriously, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Once again, for those of you guys watching or listening, this has been Customizing Culture. My name is Jared, here with Heat Press Nation, and our very special guest today has been Jon Phenom. Jon, dude, 100 million thank yous. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys so much.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys around. Catch us in the next one.